Okay, now let's settle for the details. An explosion and gunfire have been heard at the shopping center in Nairobi, where militants are believed to be holding a number of hostages. 68 people have been killed and more than 170 injured since the attack began on Saturday. Between 10 and 15 attackers, thought to be militants from the Somali Al-Shabaab movement, are still inside the Westgate shopping center. Reporters at the scene said there had been heavy and rapid bursts of fire. Overnight, reports said that the gunmen were holed up in a supermarket. Earlier, Defense spokesman Colonel Cyrus Oguna said only a small number of hostages were still being held and most had been rescued. Correspondents at the complex reported an eerie calm early on Monday, despite the army's statement that it wanted to bring a speedy conclusion to the siege, now entering its third day.
And Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta has vowed to hunt down the leaders behind the terrorist attack in an upmarket shopping center in Nairobi.
Been ideal, but I am satisfied that our disciplined forces have responded in a professional and effective manner as the circumstances have allowed. I also ask Kenyans to remember that these officers are putting their lives on the line for the greater good. Therefore, give them due consideration and prayer. The Al-Shabaab terror group have claimed responsibility for this cowardly act of terror on social media. However, investigations are underway to conclusively establish those responsible for this mayhem so that we can have full accountability. They shall not get away with their despicable and beastly acts. Like the cowardly perpetrators now cornered in the building, we will punish the masterminds swiftly and indeed very painfully.
Swift and painful punishment for the perpetrators, words of Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta. But family members of Professor Kofi Awuno say they plan to send a delegation to Nairobi to confirm the death of the renowned poet and author. Professor Kofi Awuno was killed in Kenya when gunmen took over the Westgate shopping mall on Saturday, where he had gone to have breakfast with his son. His son also sustained injuries.
Born on March 13, 1935, Professor Kofi Awuno, a Ghanaian poet and author whose work combined the poetic tradition of his native Ewe people and contemporary and religious symbolism to depict Africa during decolonization. He wrote his first poetry book, Rediscovery, based on African oral poetry. He also managed the Ghanaian Film Corporation and founded the Ghana Playhouse. From 1990 to 1994, Professor Awuno was Ghana's ambassador to the United States, where he headed the Committee Against Apartheid. He was also a former chairman of the Council of State. Professor Awuno was in Nairobi as a guest speaker at an international literary conference hosted in East African country. His death has been a sudden shock to the family and the country as a whole. Although our cameras were not allowed into his North Legon residence, the mood at his home was solemn. Family members, friends, and some senior citizens were seen around in mourning clothes to sympathize with the widow. A relative, Professor Anyudohu, spoke to Joy News.
We have heard that something has happened. The family has just met, and as would normally be done in such cases, we are sending a delegation to Nairobi this evening. We expect them back by Wednesday. So we plan for a follow-up meeting Tuesday in the afternoon. If it is confirmed for us, at that point we will be in a position to put out a formal statement on behalf of the family.
He also confirmed that the son of Professor Awuno, Apeti Awuno, who was also injured in the shootout, has been discharged from hospital.
The son is okay. I personally spoke to him last night, so He's all right. He's not in hospital. A family member there has taken him home, so he's okay. He spoke to all his brothers today.
Professor Awuno, 78, left behind 6 children and a wife. May his soul rest in perfect peace.
Indeed, may his soul rest in perfect peace, and we're wishing his son Afechi Awuno speedy recovery. Meanwhile, the Ghana Association of Writers has described the death of Professor Kofi Awuno as a big shock and big blow. President of the Ghana Association of Writers, Kwesi Jana-Pinting, described him as someone who gave Africa a voice and made it possible for Africa to hear itself and be heard by others through his work. Professor Awuno was in Nairobi as a participant in the Story Moja Hay Festival.
That's a big shock. I heard about it first in very late last night that he had been involved in the attack. It was only this morning that the level of that involvement became clear. And it is such a profound shock, such a really, really sad situation, really. People like Kofi Awuno, like, of course, Chinua Achebe, like Amatedu and Co. What did that generation, you know, what they did was to give a voice to Africa. Not just to African writers, but to Africa. They made it possible for Africa to hear itself and to be heard by others in an authentic way. Remember that when you are colonized, the colonizer gives you their language. And when you use that language, more or less you become them. But you need to find your own voice. Even when you're using their language, you need to find your own rhythm, your own idioms, your own, you know, and that is what those writers did, so that younger ones will feel confident that they can create their own symbolisms and be accepted as part of world culture. And remember that he died attending a literary festival at which he said this was the birthing of countries, bringing together. This was all that he said, you know, 3 days ago at the Moja Story Book Festival. So he died still promoting the literary culture of Africa, the literary togetherness of Africa. So he had so much to give. It is a blow. It is that enthusiasm, it's the passion. Unless you have the passion for what you do, you can do it for 1 million years, you never do it well. What we can learn from him is that commitment to whatever he wanted to do, to his passion.
And since the news was confirmed on Sunday, tributes to the departed literary giant of Ghana and Africa have been pouring in. The President John Mahama called it shocking and a sad twist of fate that Professor Awuno found himself at the Westgate Center at that particular time. 2012 NPP presidential candidate Nana Akufo-Addo said he will forever remember with fondness Professor Awuno's erudition, wit and courtesy. The Pan-African Writers Association also issued a statement describing the untimely death as a glittering page rudely torn from the glittering book of Africa. We know some of you knew him personally, perhaps he taught you, or perhaps you have long admired his work. You can share your tribute to Professor Awuno on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/joynews on TV, and we'll be reading them here on the AM show.
Well, away from that, chiefs and people of Ningo want government to site a new international airport in their community to help develop the area. During the celebration of this year's Homowo, the Mankralo of Ningo, Nene Kano Atiapa, also appealed to government to help address the devastating sea erosion that has plagued the community for years now.
The people of Ningo, predominantly fishermen and peasant farmers, are believed to have migrated from Israel. Today, 72 towns and villages form the Ningo community, which lies on the eastern coast of Ghana and shares boundaries with Ada, Prampram, and Shai Osudoku. The Homowo Festival is celebrated by residents every year to foster peace, unity, and development in the community. This year's Grand Durbar was on the theme, Arise and Build in Unity. The Mankralo of the Great Ningo traditional area, Nene Kano Atiapa III, used the occasion to appeal to government to bring the new proposed international airport to the community. He also spoke about other developmental challenges in the community.
Only one secondary school. Can secondary school kakito pending and go. Na kan government to hamblo. Can secondary schools nengo adrame kula to some standard.
Deputy Greater Accra Regional Minister responded to the calls by residents concerning the new international airport.
It is very important that when we are going to negotiate with these business people and estate developers to give them land, we should negotiate with them such that the people of Ningo will be the best beneficiaries. It must be a win-win affair. It must not a win for somebody and then a lose for the people of Old Ningo.
Indigenes of Ningo from the diaspora also witnessed this year's Homowo.
Now, health authorities say strategic measures have been put in place to check the re-emergence of bird flu in the country. Health Minister Sheriaite tells Joy News the ministry's surveillance team is also ready to fight any outbreak.
The Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, has issued a new warning to the international community that the H7N9 and H5N1 avian influenza viruses could re-emerge. The FAO said bird flu continues to pose serious threats to human and animal health, especially in view of the upcoming flu season. The Director General of the Ghana Health Service, however, assured measures have been put in place to check the spread of the influenza.
We have a surveillance department. For them, they work with the agriculture authorities, and every time we have sentinel sites, they meet regularly, and then they always get data from the field. So such things will be investigated. And normally, we also have connections with the borders. We have Port Health, they inform us of whatever is happening, and then we have our laboratories, Noguchi, and the reference labs, so that they always alert, trying to investigate any case that we see, that we investigate.
The Health Minister, Sheriaite, disclosed the ministry has no news of re-emergence of bird flu. However, it is committed to ensure the safety of Ghanaians.
The only report we have received is the virus that is in the Far East. And we've made enough preparations for those who will be going to Mecca. We are working hand in hand with WHO to ensure that those who will be going to Mecca, they will go and return safely.
She warned all to be alert and report any case of such nature for proper treatment before it spreads. The FAO has meanwhile committed $2 million of emergency funding, complemented by over $5 million from US aid to kickstart H7N9 response efforts. The US aid support has enabled FAO to help countries at risk dramatically improve surveillance capacities. Etonamse, Joy News.
And still in health, the medical director of the Jirapa St. Joseph Hospital, Dr. Wodaseme Richard, has called on the National Health Insurance Authority to go into broader consultation before they implement capitation on the scheme in the Upper West region. Speaking after a health walk organized on the occasion of the 10th anniversary of the NHIS, he stated that challenges highlighted in the pilot phase must be addressed before full implementation. Rafiq Salam's report from Jirapa.
The National Health Insurance Scheme was established in 2003 as a pro-poor policy to provide equitable access to basic health care services. 10 years after implementation, officials of the scheme say it has largely overturned the cash and carry system that hindered access to health care. In Jarapa district, officials of the scheme, staff of the National Health Services and some beneficiaries marched through principal streets to mark 10 years of national health insurance.
In the Jarapa Lamuse district, for example, 56% of us have active cars. What I mean by that is that those who can just walk into the hospital and access care, or the health center and access care, in the two districts combined, Lamuse and the Lamuse County and the Jarapa district, 56 of us at any one point in time can get into the hospital and access care.
However, for the medical director of the Jarapa St. Joseph Hospital, Dr. Wuda Seme Richard, more consultation is needed before capitation of the scheme is implemented.
We must consult broader than we have done before. Make sure that the consultation is at all levels. Key stakeholders understand their rules. In that case, if it is introduced, because everybody was part of its initiation, we will all have to see to it that it survives. I only hope that capitation does not become a flaw, does not see those challenges that we were seen at Ashanti region. I should think that by now we would have learned lessons from the Ashanti region episode and make sure that we dot all our I's and cross all the T's, and make sure that once we start on a sound footing and make sure that it survives.
The people were treated to a free medical checkup as part of the celebration. 45-year-old John Bavuba has benefited from the NHIS on 5 occasions. Rafiq Salam's report from Jarapa.
Okay, so that's it for the news this morning. But before we take leave, before we end the news, rather, we are not leaving you yet. Let's recap the top stories that we brought you. The family of the late Professor Kofi Awuno say they plan to send a delegation to Nairobi to confirm his death in a terrorist attack in a shopping mall in that city.
Meanwhile, international news reports say the Westgate Mall siege has entered day 3 with an escalation, of gunfire and explosions.
And the chiefs and people of Ningo make a case for the new proposed international airport to be situated in their community as they celebrate their annual Homowo Festival. And we'll bring you sports after this. Stay with us. Okay, so usually at this point you see Rashida or
Shida right here in the middle,
or you see Kwame Juma here, but unfortunately, fortunately for them, they're enjoying the holiday, and we are here, so we'll do the sports. We are kind to them, right?
Yes.
They are colleagues. We just want them to enjoy. Tigo. So
Smile. You've got Tigo.
We'll bring you the details after this. Okay, so now let's do some sports, and we'll start with the local Premier League, which took place over the weekend. And well, if I had made a bet with Rashida last week, I'm sure it'd be hot today, because I said Accra as a focus was to win, but
and
they lost.
Unfortunately, they lost by a goal.
Well, at least I get consolation in the fact that Manchester lost by 4-1, so at least that's good enough. Okay, so a screamer from Seidu Bansi sealed a 1-0 win by Asante Kotoko over arch rivals Accra Hearts of Oak in the Match Day 2 Super Clash in Accra yesterday. Bansi fired a powerful shot past Hearts of Oak goalkeeper Tete Lugard midway through the first half after being set up by strike partner Yaya Mohammed. The win leaves Asante Kotoko as the only team with a 100% start to the new season.
Now, while All Stars moved to second place after a 2-0 win over New Edubiase United in Wa on Sunday afternoon, a penalty converted by Samuel Boateng was soon followed by a powerful drive by Paul Asari and sealed all 3 points for the hosts.
And Amida's professionals on Saturday defeated Brekum Chelsea 2-0 in Tema to move into the higher echelons of the GPL standings. Substitute Daniel Awuni scored the first goal, with former Aduana Stars striker Daniel Goza netting the second to hand the Blues their first defeat of the new season.
Ashanti Gold beat Liberty Professionals 2-0 in Obuasi to move to 4th on the log. First half goals from new signings Bernard Morrison and Francis Ejay secured all 3 points for the Miners, while Liberty Professionals remain winless after 2 match days.
Now, Dwarfs failed to take maximum points after a 0-0 draw with a determined Hazaka side in Cape Coast. The results leaves both teams undefeated after 2 match days. King Faisal also drew blanks on Sunday in Kumasi after a 0-0 draw with Hearts of Lions. A combination of poor finishing and excellent goalkeeping by Stephen Aholu kept King Faisal at bay. The game was not without drama as Hearts of Lions player Kwame Bempong collapsed after a clash of heads. Fortunately, he was revived and returned to watch the closing stages of the match.
Aduana Stars returned to winning ways after a 2-1 win over Inter Allies in Dorma. Defender Emmanuel Akuoko scored the opening goal for the host, but Inter Allies hit back through Patrick Botte. Aduana Stars' lead was restored when Daniel Dakwa scored in his second consecutive game to win the match.
And finally, Midiama SC had to fight from a goal down to draw 1-1 with Bichem United in Takwa. Augustine Okra scored for Bichem United before Hans Kofi levelled just before halftime. Now, the 27th Accra Milo Marathon, which saw LAC Al-Haji Mohammed Kasim of the Ghana Air Force beating last year's winner from Kenya, Alex Kimeli. Kasim ran 2 hours 27 minutes and 43 seconds against Kimeli, who did 2 hours 31 minutes and 10 seconds. Third place, Akakia Tampiro ran the 42-kilometer race in 3 hours 31 minutes and 24 seconds.
Both male and female winners carried home 12,000 Ghana cedis plus products of Nestle and other sponsors of the marathon. 3 pupils from the Upper East region swept the awards in the under-15 girls category. They are Sakat Lariba, Adombila Serafina, and Sabil Sandra, whilst the boys' honours were shared by Ishmael Arthur, Yusil Malik and Daniel Ajiman. And
in the female category was actually won by Millicent Boidi, the 9-time winner. She was beaten by last year's champion Elizabeth Bocho, who made the time of 2 hours 58 minutes and 11 seconds. So that's the Milo Marathon for you, which took place at the weekend.
Let's now dash down to England and catch a glimpse of what happened in the English Premier League over the weekend, including the drubbing of Manchester United.
Okay, so that's the roundup of sports action here on the AM show. Presented proudly by myself.
Because the sports guys are on holiday.
They're enjoying somewhere and
yes,
we are here. So still, we no vex. After all, I'd have taken a strong exception if after Hass's defeat, Manchester United had also won. But once it was this, it was.
So I take it you're a Chelsea supporter?
A sympathizer.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So that was sports. Remember, sports on the AM shows brought to you by Tigo. Smile, you've got Tigo.